So, first of all, if everyone could just explain who they are, what their companies are, and the role that you play there. Going from you, sir.
From me? Okay. Hello? Is it working? Okay. So hello, everyone. I'm Sam Wong from Sky Limit Entertainment. We created the immersive entertainment brand So Real. So we created the world's first truly VR indoor theme park back to more than 2.5 years ago, end of 2016 in Beijing. It covers an area about 40,000 square feet. And we actually won the design of the park once the International Design Awards. There's many different attractions in the park. There's the one area specifically, it's a VR esports area. Okay.
I'm Angelo. I'm a partner at HP Tech Ventures. We make investments and partnerships with companies in various spaces, including LBE. I cover VR, AR, gaming, education, and training, so there's a lot of overlap. And then we have, obviously, our business side with all the backpacks and hardware and whatnot.
My name is Jan Goodluck. I'm the founder and CEO of Virtuix. We make the Virtuix Omni, which is a motion platform to walk and run around inside VR games and applications. To date, we've sold over 3,000 Omnis to over 500 locations in 45 countries. Recently, we launched our VR Arena Esports attraction, which is a higher-end attraction, a turnkey solution for the higher-end LBE space, family entertainment centers, and so forth. And we also started organizing weekly and monthly esports contests and tournaments. We have a $50,000 prize pool this year with sponsorship from HP and HTC.
We also have Ryan Burnham on Skype. You should be able
Can
to
everyone
see
see
him,
me?
everyone.
Or just hear me?
Actually, it's on Microsoft Teams. Sorry, I correct myself. Can you introduce yourself, Ryan?
Sure. So I am Ryan Burnham. I am the founder of Virtualities and the Virtual Athletics League. So we run VR esports events with a network of arcades around the globe. So currently we're working with about 200 locations that have participated in our previous tournaments.
Great. So, obviously, Tim and I have run some esports tournaments. In fact, our next one will be at Insomnia with the British Army. 70,000 people will be attending that. So wish us luck. Hopefully, I'll be alive after that one.
Yeah. No more heart attacks.
Yeah. But so tell me exactly how your companies fit into the esports ecosystem.
Yeah, I'll start. Yeah, we started organizing regular esports tournaments. We have one monthly global tournament across all locations that have Omnis all over the world. And then we have an ongoing weekly tournament just for our VR Arena locations. And as I said, we have a $50,000 prize pool. Every month, the first team wins $1,000, plus needs to survive, and then it goes $500, $250, and so forth. So every month we organize that. It's a new way of doing esports. We actually did the esports already back in 2016, where we held big esports events, much like what you just described. We had one event in Shanghai with our partner there, actually in Shenzhen, where we had a big Omni tournament, 4 Omnis on a stage, 11 million viewers, 11 million people watched that. That's massive. But there's not much substance behind it. What happens then is it's a great marketing event, but really, other than that, after the event, there's nothing much left. So we decided last year to do esport, but from the grounds up, to really build a community around it. And the key to that is just regular monthly or weekly tournaments and commit to that and build a community from the grounds up, and that's what we're doing right now.
I mean, we obviously came out with our new high-end headset. I think it's been 2 weeks ago now that's been publicly announced, right, which I think is great for the LBE space. We've got backpacks, right? We're all in on LBE. It's one of our primary focus areas. We have other verticals we're looking at, like AEC and product development, but LBE, Joanna Popper was here, I'm sure she is here still, is our worldwide lead on that, and it's an area of high interest to us. And then obviously we've worked with Ryan at VAL, we've worked with Virtuix, right, in terms of the partnerships can take many forms, right? What's good for the community, what's good for our partners, what's going to be good for us, not just in the short term, but in the long term, trying to build a community and kind of push this development, and realizing it's a long game. And we're not just going to be, here for like 6 months or need to have an ROI in the next few weeks. It's just like, let's make this all grow.
So we did.
Yes. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead. because you're far.
Thanks. Anyway, so yeah, John, it's awesome. He actually visited our location, I think, back in 2017, just right when we were first starting. So we've been a big fan of just what VirtuX is doing there, and then obviously HP, Angelo, it's been good to talk to you. Our last tournament, so to give an example of what we do in the space, we worked with both HTC and HP, but our last tournament was sponsored by HP. We partnered with that with Ubisoft, and we ran the Space Junkies International Tournament. So for that one, I think we ended up with like 15 countries and around 90 teams registered. So as far as we can tell, that's one of the larger team-based events currently in VR. Is just a brand new space. But we partner with game developers to help run the tournaments in arcades. So that's really our sweet spot is the arcade market. And you know, games like Space Pirate Trainer, that's been really cool to see. One of my personal favorite games, and we've seen an emergence of some competitive scenes around that. So.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we didn't really, the esports wasn't really part of the plan more than 3 years ago in So Real. But as I mentioned, because there's big variety of different attractions in this park. There's seated experience, there's free roam experience, and then there's more than 2 years ago we developed a player versus player game, and then it becomes the most popular attraction. So people likes it the most. And then 2 years ago in China Joy, we showcased the demonstration, and literally it was the longest queue, most popular attraction during China Joy. And then end of last year, we did a demonstration, free roam demonstration match with Intel in China. China's one of the biggest tournament called the Intel Master Challenger. It was a huge success. There was almost 1 million, spectators online watch this. This is 4,000 spectators on site in Beijing Olympic Indoor Stadium. So actually, there was LOL, there was CS:GO, but it comes like we have like a 15-minute section. That section, the online spectators reach the peak level. So that's how we involve in this esports.
Well, Goldman Sachs, for example, predicts it's going to be 267 million viewership by 2021, I think. I got it right. There you go, Kevin. And, if we can only get a slice of that, that would be great, wouldn't it? So what do you think, are the biggest hurdles we face with VR esports? And how can we overcome them? Any ideas? I mean, anything that you're doing that could help people kind of run tournaments in their arcade or run tournaments, as I'm doing at certain events?
Yeah, I think the key is to build it from the grounds up. Like what Ryan is doing is terrific, but it has to be consistent, and you have to commit to it for the long term. It's not going to happen with just one event or 2 events. You have to build a player community around what you're doing. Because the one challenge you have with VR and the VR games is that it's not like a League of Legends or a Call of Duty or other games that have millions and millions of players already established all over the world. And those games are already vastly popular. VR games, by their nature, have a much smaller audience to begin with. And to build an esports community around that, you have to build it up, and it goes very slowly. You might start with 10 players, but you have to commit to it and organizing it over and over again and build a community, much like what Ryan is doing as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Discord as well, I think we talked about this last week, is a really good channel for your community to get involved with your venues, know when the tournaments are on, know about the games that you're doing. We've used it a lot, haven't we, Tim?
We've used Discord a lot. The one problem, the thing that we've come across a lot is how do you interact as a player with your audience? There are a couple of programs that they are using that they can see on Discord on their arm. But if you have a second person there actually reading or talking with you, we've worked with people at Machinima before they kind of went belly up, that were absolutely awesome and were able to communicate with each other, with their audience, able to get the audience involved with VR. And I think that's our main concern, is how do you get the audience involved and watching VR while you're doing it? Because VR seems to be such a singular experience. So how do you create the community with the singular experience?
There's an opportunity. The new machinima without all the
Machinima, that's
without all the debt.
It's a great opportunity for esports because naturally esports with VR can be much more interesting than just regular esports because for a couple of reasons. One, with VR, maybe at some point a viewer can be inside the game, inside the arena, having a viewpoint within the actions as just looking from a 2D screen. And also with VR, there's more physical engagement, whether just standing VR or with the Omni, of course, it's to the extreme where people are physically running and gunning inside the game. But inherently, it's a bit more interesting than people just sitting behind a desk on a chair, just kind of moving their wrist a little bit. I think VR has opportunity to make esports actually more mainstream than it is today. I know esports is already big, but it's still kind of the biggest thing most people haven't heard of. And so I think with VR there's an opportunity to break through a bigger audience, make it more interesting for viewers.
Yeah, most people don't even know how to spell it actually as well.
Right. I think for us, if I could have Discord just be plugged directly into my brain, I think that would be a big challenge we could go overcome. But it's just, the community aspect is really key. And I think, developers and everybody else is just trying to figure out the space as we go. Just not our league, but, the Oculus ESL League has had some great success. But, the Unspoken tournament, that was fairly challenging to run, just from what I've heard. But on the other hand, Onward, they had a tremendous viewership this last season. It was crazy to see the Twitch comments. People are saying this is the future. People are saying, now, great, I have to get up out of my couch. So all sorts of, humorous comments. But anyway, there's just a lot of physicality and elements, and it's still just a very new and exciting space to participate in.
I mean, and longer term, right? Longer term, one of the issues is that people don't have the headsets, they're not comfortable, people are getting eye strain, right? I mean, we're looking at hardware solutions with Microsoft and other people to make that better, right? I mean, just think about how much better it can be if more people had it and you're not getting like sweating in it, and it's like you're not giving eye strain, and this is just a break that we have, and even though we have these huge tailwinds, it's something we're working on solving.
That's part of the great thing about VR esports, though, is actually getting to sweat in there, though. It's such a great mixture of athleticism and button mashing. It's the combination of real athleticism and brain power.
Completely agree, but if you're an LBE operator, I'm not excited about getting into someone else.
I understand, you don't want to get too sweaty, but that's part of what's a great thing about what's coming up with new VR. You get to actually experience it for real as opposed to just sitting there and enjoying it. It's the real physical aspect.
Yeah. I mean, it's true, and when people on the Omnis are competing for an esports tournament, I mean, these guys are physically fit, in addition to being good gamers and good at first-person shooters, but they are physically running and gunning and in the game, and yeah, lots of sweat. I mean, it's inevitable.
3 more months and I'm coming out there and we're going to win.
I like it.
So for us, I have a fan at home. It was pointed right at my face when I played Beat Saber, and then when we ran the Beat Saber tournament, the top competitors always look like cross-country athletes. Yep. So it's just really cool to see.
So I'm totally agree with the rest of the speakers' view, but I think I want to touch on one more thing. It's really the gameplay itself, the content. Face the truth, there's really no AAA content in VR game yet. If you want to build the community, why the player wants to play the game, because the game is good to play, right? So the depth of VR games are not even close. They're still very shallow.
Yeah,
so I think that's one of the key things.
It's a very good point.
I think that's an excuse, though. I really think that's an excuse, because if you look at a lot of esports itself, it's not about the content.
It's about the graphics on the stage properly.
It's a cult of personality. So it's about getting the player there and getting the the audience connected with the player, not the content.
No, I fully agree with you. I mean, those esports titles that are big titles, they have from a game design perspective, they have a lot of elements in there, just designed from the start for esports. Overwatch, for example, big esports title. If you listen to Ryan Kotesh, he will explain how they built that game meant for esports. They built in certain factors in the game to make it easy to watch, to make it easy to view, and then the depth, like League of Legends or even Overwatch, the depth of that game is something that you are absolutely right. I haven't seen it in VR, and it's a big effort to make such games. Our own games that we make for esports, they're also optimized for esports. You have to take into account from the beginning, but to have the level of depth that some of these big titles have, it's almost a different league.
Yeah. Once you have a good content, I mean, the players will come. You need to build the community, but you just need the right game.
You're absolutely
Yeah,
correct, yeah.
I think depth comes if the gameplay is good enough. It's true. There's nothing quite like Red Dead or in VR just quite yet. But for example, Beat Saber seems like a fairly simple game on the surface. 4 blocks, but people have made that a surprisingly in-depth game. And then we actually have another tournament ongoing this month that we just announced this last week for Skyworld Kingdom Brawl, and that one I think I played Clash of Clans for nearly 3 years. And that one's just incredible card battler game that has a lot of parallels with Magic the Gathering. And those games, even though they're fairly simple, as long as the gameplay is good, like in Skyworld, the mechanics, people will really dig into that. So, I think there is a challenge. There's not, 30-hour single-player / multiplayer Call of Duty type depth yet, but there are some real gems that I think stand out.
Yeah, and I think some of them might not have even been discovered as well. There are some publishers out there that are independent publishers that are not embraced by certain people who aren't here today.
Name names.
No. But that are pretty good games, but they're just not being helped by those, publishers, etc. So I also want to talk about money. So I went to the Dota tournament held by ESL in Birmingham, UK last year. The prize money was £1 million for that. Obviously, there are higher prizes for, other tournaments, etc. But one that was relatively, not promoted, but sold out within 24 hours, 17,000 seats. That's the kind of money people are throwing at these things. So, I know, Ryan, that you have some sponsorship. I know the VR League has 250,000. I'm not quite sure how that works out, but obviously, I'm assuming you would like some higher prize pools.
Our $1 million prize pool, we're announcing that next year. We've just kept wraps on it, so
Yeah,
if
good.
everyone can please be quiet about it. No, but seriously, I think that's a good question, right? And I think that's just a matter of scale. So I think VR, as what Yana said, has to be totally built from the ground up for esports, right? So, esports didn't get to the way it was overnight. 25 years ago, people were just meeting in basements in computer labs at Stanford and running Quake tournaments. No one paid attention. There was no esports press. The word caster probably hadn't been invented. And then, even 10 years after that, you had the Unreal Tournament, but still it was something that people kind of treated as a side hobby. Even as back early as like 2003, people were running Halo tournaments essentially as volunteer organizations. There's starting to be some professionalization that emerged out of Korea and with StarCraft. But it's really on the past 10 years that we've seen like this massive explosion of professionalization. And to some extent, VR can definitely learn from that, but it's not going to be an overnight thing. And I think from investors and other people's perspective, VR is expected to be a big overnight success, and to some extent it is. There's 1 million active users, is what an investor just quoted me currently in VR today, which is pretty substantial. But it still is definitely a ground building.
I mean,
brick building
if there was a bigger prize pool, I'll be honest, I'd have my child and I'd be training her every day. So,
so right now, not to bring on them too much, but VR Respawn, which is a great VR esports publication, they enter the Oculus League and they put their team logo as a bunch of dollar cash signs. So I just noticed that yesterday for Space Junkies tournament.
Brilliant. Angelo,
What was the
any
question?
thoughts on money for tournaments? Asking the money person, you see?
I've told you beforehand, I have a check size of below 5,000 or above $1 million. Other than that,
We'll take over $1 million.
No, you're actually the right guy. This is the guy with money, right?
Right.
It is part of the problem, right? I actually would agree in terms of, I think there are good games out there already. People play Beat Saber for thousands of hours, right? Having a purse is definitely going to help, right? Having professional teams, having people have houses and getting paid and not having to kind of, scrunge along for, months and months making no money is definitely going to help the industry. I'm not sure how many people are going to dedicate their child's education towards playing esports. You might want to try for the NBA still. But I think it's coming and it's going to help.
Funny story, the two guys that won our tournament last month, they're 15 and 16 years old, and they won $1,000. And so we had to have parental consent for them to send them money. So we had to ask their parents, can we send them $1,000? Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I'm interested, Sam, in Asia, by the way. When you went to the CSGO tournament in, where was it, Beijing or?
Yeah, it was Beijing. I mean, in Asia, especially in China, interesting enough, I know that in Western world, CSGO is bigger than LOL.
Yeah.
But in China, it's totally opposite. You will find so many LOL fans, much more than CSGO. CSGO is kind of like, it's a perfect example. End of last year, when we were on the IMC final, the first part of the event was LOL. The fans are crazy. It's full of spectators. But the second section, when it goes to CSGO, like half of them leave. They just left. But China or Asia, definitely, I think, one of the largest esports market. You see how many people are playing games, whatever it's PC game or a mobile game. At the same time, I just learned this recently. There's more than 140,000 internet cafes in China.
Yes.
And the box office, I mean, the revenue generated by the iCafes actually almost tripled than the film box office.
Yeah.
So what they're doing in the iCafes, they play games, right? They watch games. They watch the game tournaments. So that's, big potential, yeah.
Right. So, I just also want to say that, once again, we are raising money for Stack Up. We're in over there. And it's a $10 buy-in, and 50% will go to the winner and 50% to the charity. But we will be doing that with a very simple game, which is Virtual Soccer Zone, which we've been doing for a while. But the one that we're actually going to be doing with the British Army has been ported over to HTC to their focus, and we'll be doing that with the British Army in this month, in 2 weeks, right?
2 weeks.
Yeah. And that is a very good example of a mobile game, actually, that can be used as an esports kind of game as well. It's multiplayer, and everyone's very excited about it. And you'll hear from RJ a bit later on. But thank you all for listening. Any questions? Okay, I think we're good. All right.
How about some walk-off music?
Oh, God.
We need some Timmy here. Timmy time.
Oh, God.
I just don't want anybody to Photoshop me behind a green screen, so.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Thanks to the panelists.
Thank you.
See you later.